Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Run in the Paint recap. Today is Thursday, May 14th. I'm Miles here with Ben. Ben, how are you doing today?
I'm feeling great. I gotta be doing great after this great Cavs win that we can't wait to dive into and share our thoughts on to you guys.
That's right. We had a big overtime game between the Cavs and the Pistons in Game 5, and we had our first, I guess we'd call it the Run in the Paint watch party. If you would say so. Ben came over to my place. We watched the whole game, rode the roller coaster that was this game. For us Cavs fans, but Cleveland was able to get a huge victory. We're going to dive into that big game. We have a couple of huge game sixes coming up on Friday. Nothing actually tonight. So we won't have an episode coming out tomorrow, but we are going to, obviously go over this Cavs Pistons game, preview game 6 of this series, and also the Spurs Timberwolves. So it should be a ton of fun. Make sure you guys stay tuned for all that. But first, since there's not going to be an episode coming out on Friday, we're going to do Pirtle today. We're going to see if we can have some luck today. And the first player that we are going to guess, we're going to continue on with our theme of going with role players that had strong performances in the playoffs. We're going to go with Max Strus. So let's see. Low jersey number. And okay. So really all that we get here is this is going to most likely be a Western Conference big guy that's 31 or 32 years old.
Okay.
Not bad, not bad, not bad by any means.
31 or 32, big guy in the West. Let me think. Yeah, okay.
And the forward is highlighted yellow, so this is probably going to be a forward / center, so not going to be a straight center.
Yeah. It's 31, 32. Blank so far.
I'm trying to think around that time, who would be 31 or 32? Well, again, an older veteran guy in the league. Oh no, that guy's not a center. I was gonna say we could go with Kyle Anderson, but he's not. He wouldn't be considered a center.
Right.
Let's see here. Going around the league, 31, 32 years old, forward / center in the Western Conference. I mean, the thing that's hard with this is we probably need to try to get a division down, for us to really have any chance of getting this in a short amount of time. Again, this could really be so many different players. We could go with a guy like Sabonis, Domantas Sabonis.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Not sure if he's already in his 30s yet, but at least we could get closer to the jersey number. We could get
at least
division down. So let's go with that. We'll go with. Let's try him out. Domantas Sabonis, one of Joey's guys. Okay. Western Conference, not in the Pacific Division, but it's the number 12 or the number 13. That is huge.
Yeah, that's big. All right, 12, 13 in Southwest or Northwest.
Well, hold on. Something that's very interesting here, Ben, is that the center is not highlighted at all. So this is saying this is going to be a 6'8" or 6'9" guard / forward.
Oh, wait. Could this be like Amen Thompson, maybe?
Nah, too young.
Wait, no, too old. Oh, the age, darn.
It's not. That's not bad though. I mean, taller
would have been good, maybe, but no, too young.
Taller guard that wears the number 12 or number 13. All right, I'm pretty good with jersey numbers, so we'll see if I can get anything figured out here. Going across the league, nothing for them. Portland, no, I don't think so. This is just so unique because usually I don't really think there are a whole lot of young guys that are, yeah, I don't think there are a lot of old guys that would be like tall guards. Like that seems like a much more modernized thing, you know?
Yeah, we are 10 PQ. Where's 12 13 on one of these teams? Like, I don't know. It's Najee Marshall and the Mavericks wear 12 or 13. I don't know.
He does. He does wear the number 13.
Yeah,
That could work. I don't think he's that old, but at least we
I
could
don't
get
know.
division down. So
One
let's go with
player
Najee
thought of
Marshall. Let's go
yeah.
Najee Marshall. No. Okay, so this is gonna
Alright,
be the number
Northwest.
12. 12 in the Northwest. Oklahoma City, number 12. I don't think they have a number 12 unless I'm forgetting. Spurs 12 doesn't exist, I don't think. Nuggets? I don't think so either. Minnesota? I don't think so either.
Ricky Beebe is Utah. I'm not sure you words
Utah number
well can't be
12.
there.
What?
I still can't think of a name there.
I
Maybe it's somebody who's, more so a older bench guy.
Yeah, gosh, I'm actually stumped on this. Oklahoma City number 12. I just don't think they have that. That's older.
Yeah, I'm stumped here too. This is a hard one.
This is Spurs, no. Is it a Nugget? Tim Hardaway Jr. is the number 10. 12. Man, I think this is for the
I'm
first time in a while.
stumped.
I think we're actually stumped on this. 31, 32-year-old. Like, I don't think John Conchar? I don't think he's number 12. But he's on the Jazz. I guess we could just try it. I mean,
Try it.
this is actually crazy. Oh, he's number 55. That wasn't even
Ooh.
close. Someone who used to play for the Jazz.
Oh.
What?
Well,
Oh,
if you go
this
there,
is gonna be frustrating.
who else in that division used to play for the Jazz outside of Gobert who can't be Gobert?
I don't know. I think I think this is only the second time we've had to do this. I'm actually gonna look it up. This is crazy. And that I legitimately don't remember. So we Minnesota and the Jazz. It probably is. No, well, no, it's not the Jazz. Minnesota number 12. There's no way. There's no way. I think it is actually Kyle Anderson.
Oh no! You thought of him too earlier. Oh,
I
that's
literally said his name and we didn't get it. Man, that stinks. Slow-mo
uh,
apologies.
sorry.
Gosh, I think I said him for 2.
Oh, yeah, I know you did. Oh,
Well, you know what the problem was? It's
wow.
because I thought it would be a forward or a center, but
That
that is a
that's
taller
why.
guard. That's a taller wing player. All right, slow-mo got us a
Yeah,
little stumped here. Hopefully, you guys got
rookie
Kyle
one.
Anderson
Wow.
quicker than we did. But now let's get back into the playoffs. Let's get into the playoffs and talk about the lone game that was last night, the pivotal game 5 between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Detroit Pistons. Of course, heading into this game, it was the home team series. No road team had won in the series until this game when the Cavaliers got it done 117 to 113 in overtime to win their third consecutive game of the series. And now they're just one win away from advancing to their first Eastern Conference Finals without LeBron James in 34 years. Ben, this was a wild game. Again, like I said before, we were both here watching it together. Just a wild roller coaster of a game. To start things off, it felt like the Cavs were in the same mold that they were in for the first 2 games in Detroit, turning the ball over. Detroit was dominating points off turnovers. They had 20 in the first half. But Cleveland was able to, find ways to survive all the punches that the Pistons threw to come back in the second half, pull it out in overtime. But I think we have to start with the first half. Detroit, again, they looked very good. They looked a lot better defensively. They were guarding much better. And again, 20 points off of turnovers, but Cleveland only trailed by 8 points at halftime. Ben, how important do you think that was to them eventually pulling this one out in the end?
I thought it was important. Me and you when we were watching the game, we were like, all right, cut it down to single digits at least. So you're not down by too much. And Cavs did get a big stop from what I remember at the end of the first half was helped, and then we were down by only 8. So that wasn't too bad. It, obviously wasn't a great first half, not a bad first half. They were okay. They were at least, somewhat in the game, not down by, you know, double digits. So, the Cavs, I knew at halftime they played better, clean things up, that it was doable for them to possibly win. And yeah, I agree. In the first half, yeah, fortunately the turnover issues came back to the Cavs, and Pistons played a great defense where they really got up tight on the Cavs players when we were on offense and just made our half court offense slow to start off, at least in the first half. But the
Yeah,
Cavs,
and I think you got to I think Ben going off that point, I think you have to start on on their defense. You have to start with the way that Asar Thompson played in this game. I mean, he was absolutely everywhere. His stat line, little bit of everything. 6 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals, 3 blocks. In 40 minutes, he was able to play big minutes after the last 2 games in Cleveland. He was just, frankly, he was just so brutal that JB Bickerstaff had to pull him off the floor when it mattered, especially in game 4. He played a much better game and just really disrupted the Cavs backcourt, James Harden and Donovan Mitchell.
yeah, he got off to a fantastic start defensively. And pretty much throughout the game, he guarded Mitchell pretty good when he was on him. So yeah, he stepped it up, played better on some floor again, unlike in Cleveland where he struggled more in games 3 and 4. But yeah, his defense was big, especially early on.
Yeah, and that really kick started them into getting a whole lot of points in the fast break. Of course, they had a little bit of injury, things that happened on their team that had to, force them to switch their lineup up a little bit. Duncan Robinson, back soreness, had to miss this game. So Dennis Jenkins started, and he got off to a great start. He had their first 7 points, finished with 19, playing nearly 41 minutes. But Ben, I mean, obviously for Detroit, the thing that stings them in this game, aside from them having the 15-point lead in the first half, looking so good defensively, leading by 9 with 2.5 minutes to go in regulation. I think as far as an individual player performance, they lost a game where Cade Cunningham was the best player on the floor for either team. I mean, he was awesome, making tough shot after tough shot. I thought he was getting everything he wanted. He finished with 39 points in this game, 7 boards, 9 assists. I thought that he was an absolute stud in this game.
Yeah, he was phenomenal, and he played for pretty much the entire game. He only didn't play for like a few minutes in it. So yeah, it was impressive. Just how long he was just able to keep being phenomenal on offense. But Cavs overall, I thought played some good defense. We did a good job overall of not letting other guys beat us outside the key too much. Tobias Harris, he more cold at this one. He didn't really shoot it good at all. Only 13 points. He was having good games before, and that didn't help. Jenkins stepped up, more at home. He seemed to play better at home in this series. He had a good scoring game, 19 points, but still, I thought wasn't totally enough to help them out there. And yeah, Jalen Duran, he only played 25 minutes. He didn't play a whole ton of minutes. JB sat him
Just another
more
brutal game.
later in the game. Just another brutal game for him. Exactly.
Yeah, again, but it really is incredible, like the turnaround that we've seen from a guy that, again, I'll keep saying it, all star. I had him as my most improved player, and I had him on my All NBA ballot. For him to completely have this turnaround on all facets of the game, whether it's scoring, rebounding, he had some really nice passes in this game, which I think was a good highlight for them. But again, when it mattered most, we were wondering heading into this game, would JB Bickerstaff make the tough, decision to bench Jalen Duren down the stretch if he was playing bad? And he did. Third straight game where Paul Reed doesn't play doesn't play the entire first half. This game, he didn't play in the first 3 quarters because Isaiah Stewart actually came in and provided them a couple threes and some offense in this game. But Paul Reed played the entire fourth quarter and overtime, played very well. 10 points, 8 boards, 2 blocks, 4 offensive rebounds. Another big game for him off the bench here. And, something to look for, now heading into game 6 after the Pistons have lost 3 straight. Now they have to go to Cleveland, where they have yet to win a game in this series, facing elimination here. Will JB Bickerstaff make another big change? Will he make the change to just outwardly play Paul Reed a lot more minutes? Like, Ben, do you think there's a possibility that we could see Jalen Duren not start in game 6 of this series because of how poorly he's played?
Yeah, I expect more Paul Reed minutes. He did play well in Cleveland too in games 3 and 4 when he was there. But I still am guessing JB will start Duren just to show he has some belief in him. I guess I would still start Duren, but if he's still struggling again, look to make a lineup change, soon there, possibly, and I'd be looking, play Paul Reed a good amount of minutes, off the bench if he can, since he's looked good and he's found a way to do well just recently with some scoring and some defense just recently, at least in this series against the Cavs. And yeah, tough not having, Duncan Robinson for extra shooting and, for just helping out the floor spacing in this game. Hope that he's back and available to go in the starting lineup to at least help your floor spacing. Help for some better 3-point shooting to try to keep up with the Cavaliers, who the Cavs have tend to, shoot it good from free at home. And you will need Duncan Robinson if you want to keep up with, 3-point shooting scoring to try to keep you in it in game 6. But yeah, tough one for Detroit. I thought maybe they're gonna have this one for what I was seeing earlier on in the fourth quarter, but Cavs did an impressive job at just continuing the fight, and they just somehow found a way.
Yeah, so let's talk about Cleveland. We've done a lot of talking about Detroit, rightfully so, because this was a crazy game for both teams. One of the best games of the playoffs so far. I mean, again, the roller coaster, it was, crazy, I'm sure for neutral fans as well, just seeing these two teams, throw haymakers at each other. But for the Cavaliers, coming off of a game where Donovan Mitchell had that record breaking, or that record tying second half in game 4. Mitchell just didn't really have it in this game, for the most part until the overtime when he made some big plays. But throughout the game, I think the 3 players you look at are James Harden, who was, talk about roller coasters, game. He's a roller coaster of a player. And this game was certainly the biggest sign of it. But overall, the numbers: 30 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists. Did have the 6 turnovers, but made big time shots on the stretch, big free throws. Also had some big defensive plays as well, with 3 blocks of steal in there as well. So Harden was huge. Evan Mobley, second straight game where I thought he was everywhere. And then Max Strus off the bench with 20 points and 8 rebounds, 6 for 8 from 3. Those 3 players were massive in Cleveland pulling out this victory.
Yeah, I totally agree. Harden did great with scoring all throughout the game. Help with Mitchell, more so struggling earlier on in the game. I did think, he picked it up a bit more, made a few big shots for the Cavs when it, mattered most down overtime to help us pull out a win. So proud of the way Mitchell kept fighting, but it was tougher on him because I thought the Pistons just guarded him overall definitely better than in game 4, especially when Sar Thompson was guarding him, as I mentioned. But yeah, Strus, he was huge off the bench. We really needed a great role player performance, or with Mitchell struggling more, it was needed. Someone else had to find a way to just step it up and provide us with some good scoring, and that was Max Strus. Shot it phenomenally well. He really helped the floor spacing. He was great. He brought the energy too. I love Max Strus's energy in this game once again as well. And the bigs got it going good. They had some nice big to big connection passes multiple times, which I enjoyed seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Evan Mobley deserves so much flowers for the way that I mean, he's honestly improved really throughout these playoffs. Like, I know he's someone that, received a lot of flack during the regular season because he didn't take the massive leap that maybe we were expecting coming into the season. But I think he has really become a great third option or hub on this team. Like, the way that his playmaking has improved throughout these last few games, I think has been enormous. He had 8 more assists in this game. He had 5 in game 4. Like, it's crazy. He's had 4 or more assists in all the games in this series. So his playmaking has really improved. And it's so important in going up against a team like Detroit to have someone like you might notice a lot here, even though the Cavs have both Harden and Mitchell as their backcourt, there's a lot of possessions where Evan Mobley is the guy that's bringing the ball up the floor. And I think that's so important because of the Piston perimeter defenders that they have. They're able to make things harder for Harden and Mitchell and when Schroeder's in the game to bring up the ball. With Mobley, usually he's guarded by Harris or Duran. He's not having Thompson or Jenkins, guard him as he's bringing the ball up the floor. And I think that's a big point and something that I wish that the Cavs, used more last year in the playoffs against Indiana because I thought they, provided similar problems and we didn't see that a whole lot. They're using Mobley as more of that hub that he is capable of being. And I think that's been an enormous factor for the Cavs in the last 3 games.
Yeah, I agree. Evan Mobley, another fantastic game, a great game from both bigs I fought. So yeah, not much to complain with them. I would say, I guess, there were a few times where they give up some, second chance, other opportunities from not getting the rebound. Something the kids can still work on, proving some more. But, overall, we did out rebound them a bit more. So, I mean, I wouldn't say the rebounding was bad. Still good in this game from the Cavs, but yeah, just was impressed, with how resilient the Cavs were. I mean, Pistons were making it hard on us with, the pressure they brought on defense, helping slow down our offense more, but the Cavs just kept fighting and fighting. And then when it mattered most, I was just so proud of them that they made some good adjustments and found a way to answer and come out with a win.
Yeah, I mean, this is probably the most impressive win that this Cavs team has had in this era, I would say, especially in the playoffs, and no doubt the biggest. And because, this team, their identity really has been that they aren't tough when they crumble when it matters the most. And in this game, there were several opportunities where they could have folded and would have folded in years past with the different players they had on their team and just them not having as much experience. Cleveland, again, they're down 15 midway through the second quarter. They're able to cut it back to 8 at halftime. They come all the way back, have a 4-point lead entering the fourth quarter after trailing by 15 midway through the second. And then to start the fourth quarter, they went 6.5 minutes before they made their first field goal. And Detroit went up by, they went on a 12-0 run and they had a big lead. There was the play where the Cavs had a turnover. They were turning it over a lot in the fourth quarter to start out with as we lose Ben here for a moment. But then then at the other end, Dennis Jenkins made the corner 3 that put Detroit up by 6. Crowd was going crazy. Kenny Atkinson had to call a timeout. Cavs could have fell that then. They were down by 9 with 2.5 minutes to go. And then they received, they got 7 straight points from Evan Mobley. One on the crazy broken play that turned into a dunk. Then that top of the key 3-pointer. And then in the final minute, when he knocked down those 2 clutch free throws, as Ben rejoins us, the Cavs, they're poised down the stretch when they could have fallen multiple times. I think really speaks to the improvement and the growth of this core, which is super fun to watch. I'm sure for the normal NBA fan, like all of us, but obviously for us being in Cleveland, watching this team grow from the last few years, like it feels extra special to see them pull this win out, seeing that they've lost games like this before, and now they were able to get it done.
Yeah, like Game 6 in Toronto, that was an overtime one in the first round, and how things were going in that game in the overtime, sort of similar to this one, but I think the Cavs, learned the lessons that were good lessons for that one, and once they got in the next round here, they found a way in overtime in this one and towards the end of the fourth quarter too to have it tied going into overtime to give us a chance. So the Cavs, the momentum was really on our side too when it mattered most. And yeah, I'm so happy. I mean, some of the happiest, like behind the Cavs winning the championship in 2016 that I've been ever rooting for the Cavs. This is great, and I would be like that again if the Cavs won Game 6 to move on.
Yeah, before we move on to preview Game 6 on Friday, I think we have to talk about the last play in regulation, where, again, the Cavs come back to tie the game. And a lot of that was, of course, the Cavs, making the plays with Mobley scoring, but also their defense. They made the adjustment to put two guys on Cade Cunningham, who was having a phenomenal game. They were like, all right, you need to give up the ball here. We are going to live with Dennis Jenkins and Tobias Harris and Asar Thompson and, frankly, Paul Reed. We're going to let Karis LeVert. We're living with all those guys beating us. We cannot let this superstar of a player beat us. And Detroit struggled in the final minutes. But the final possession, the Cavs had a chance to win the game in regulation. I think we were talking about when you were here, Ben, was that the ball was in Donovan Mitchell's hands, guarded by Asar Thompson, and he was the one to take the final shot. It got stripped from him. Then the ball was, nearly sailing out of bounds. Thompson and Jared Allen go for it, and Allen, I think, gets away with, I don't know, a push or a trip, but something, that definitely could have been a foul on Jared Allen, and that would have given the Pistons a couple of free throws with 1 second to go. I mean, I think Pistons fans, I think they'll start with the fact that, again, similar to Game 4, like they just didn't make the plays down the stretch. They were careless with the ball down the stretch, and I just don't think they were the better team down the stretch. But I definitely think they have a bit of a gripe there because they could have had a couple free throws to win the game in regulation in the final second if the officials made that call, but they didn't. Goes to overtime, and the Cavs win the game.
Yeah, I know. Cavs sure did get lucky there. And yeah, I think it would have been better if we could have somehow gotten the ball in the Harden's hands there, since he was really on a roll in this game. But yeah, luckily the Cavs, just caught a break of it, just like they said. The refs, the time ran out and was gonna go to overtime. Then Cavs got it done. Let's go.
Yep, and now that sets up Game 6 on Friday night. The series back in Cleveland, and the Cavaliers have a chance to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since 2018 and for the first time without LeBron James since 1992. It would only be the second conference finals appearance without LeBron James in franchise history. They're going back home to Cleveland. I may be in attendance again, for that game. And Cleveland has not lost a game at home yet in these playoffs. So a golden opportunity for the Cavs. Of course, the best chance that they've ever gotten and probably will get to advance past the second round in this era. But Ben, with the Pistons coming in off of 3 straight losses, kind of close, obviously close losses in games 3 and 5, and then the dominant second half from Cleveland in game 4. What do you look to see from them as they, are facing elimination, which is something that they are used to doing, coming back from down 3-1 in the Orlando series? What do you look to see from the Pistons in game 6?
Yeah, so I, expect them to give like their same usual starting lineup. I would guess that they've done before, like Duncan Robinson's back. He would get inserted back in, and they could really use Duncan Robinson. Sorry, said just they need better floor spacing, or need good floor spacing against the Cavs, who now I trust the Cavs, to hopefully keep spacing the floor well at home. So they got to match that event for Detroit. It's just Cleveland's been able to play more fast, it seems like, at home. They have to figure out on defense, to sort of do the same thing they've been able to pull off at home, try to slow the Cavs down, even on their home court if they can, and really, put the pressure on the Cavs. And Asar Thompson, has to be the main guy for Mitchell, guarding him really well in this game, but did struggle, more so on the road, as we saw in games 3-4. But I think you still gotta, trust in him to be the primary defender on Mitchell for JB Bickerstaff. And I think, as I mentioned already, Paul Reed needs to get good minutes off that bench, and just Detroit's gotta be, smart. They can't have bad, careless turnovers like they did in games 3 and 4. They need to see if they could just have some sort of answers that maybe could trick the Cavs on their home floor to try to help them remain close and maybe steal the game. I mean, be big Detroit somehow, was resilient and won this game and sent it back to Detroit for a game 7, but the Cavs absolutely can't let that happen, of course.
Yeah, for the Cavs, it's certainly like a game 7 for them in this game. Detroit again, they've been in this situation before. Like they are not going to go down without a fight. Again, they were down 3-1 in their first round series against Orlando. Came back from down 3-1, but in that game 6 in Orlando, they were down 24 near the start of the third quarter, and then forced Orlando to miss the 23 shots in a row. Like, their defense completely stopped Orlando, and they absolutely dominated and took that crowd out of it. So that, obviously you're not going to feel super as confident when you lose 3 straight games. But the Pistons have been right there for the most part. I think they're going to be excited for the challenge here. And again, if they win this game 6 in Cleveland, go back home for game 7, they're going to have the momentum, back on their side. So, I'm sure they're thinking, you know, Cavs stole one. Now we got to steal one right back. We got to do the same thing to them. So very excited to see how these two teams respond. I'm excited to hear how loud Rocket Arena is going to be for game 6. Because again, mentioned the history behind this game. This is the biggest game for the Cavs in 8 years in this era. For Cleveland, it's the same stuff that I feel like I say it every time, but it's the same things that we always talk about: that sense of urgency, taking care of the basketball, taking care of the glass, which both thing, like, obviously turnovers can definitely be improved, but I thought they did a much better job in the second half. They did a very solid job of taking care of the boards in this game, and they knocked down shots. So if their core four, we didn't even mention Jared Allen, who had 16 and 10, had some big plays in this game. If they can get what they've gotten really from the last couple games, which is the core four all playing well, with one of those guys having a standout game, and then one of your role players, going crazy. that should be a recipe for a win here in this situation. And of course, this would be a monumental game, obviously, for both James Harden and Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell, who has never been to a conference final, this is the biggest game of his career. I can't wait to see how he comes out in this game. And same for James Harden, who has come here to try to go forward and push forward past the second round.
Yeah, Harden has made it past the second round in a good while. I don't think it's been since when he was on the Houston Rockets. They made it
You
to the
are
conference
correct.
finals, played the Warriors. Yep. So yeah, biggest game, good while for James Harden here too. And him Mitchell, they're I'm sure gonna be hungry to show up and put on a show in front of the home crowd again, and hope hope they're aggressive, get to the free throw line a lot. Cavs got to the free throw line a lot again. Detroit in game five, that has to be the same approach there as a team. I know Harden did great at finding a way to get to it a lot in game five, so just keep the same sort of floor spacing guys spaced out around the perimeter. I keep doing, the things that have worked pretty well to help change things in this series for the kids, but also, for Kenny Atkinson, still playoff series, and you gotta sort of guess what the Pistons could adjust with, so the team is of course ready to respond to whatever that could be.
Yep. Final thing before we get into our predictions, I'm looking at the beard. I'm looking at James Harden because this whole, half season since the Cavs got James Harden, it feels like we have gotten the complete James Harden experience so far up to this point, where again, he's a roller coaster of a player. Sometimes he'll have big games, sometimes he'll really struggle with turning the ball over, sometimes he's absent, things like that. And we talked about at the time of the trade, when they swapped Darius Garland for James Harden, like in the playoffs, he's going to be available, which he has been so far. And for all the stuff of him kind of choking at times in the playoffs, he's good to give you. I remember saying it on the podcast. He's good to give you like two really good games in a series. I guess I'm wondering if we've already had those two games in this series. Again, 30 points in this game. He had the takeover mode at the end of game 3. Very curious to see how James Harden comes out in this situation. Again, how Donovan comes out after, again, struggling for the first 4 quarters of game 5. But for James Harden in particular, this is very reminiscent. At least I have a little bit of flashbacks to 2023, 3 years ago, when James Harden was on the Philadelphia 76ers with MVP Joel Embiid. They're in the second round against the Boston Celtics. Series is tied up at 2 games apiece heading into game 5 after Harden had 2 40-point games in that series. He had 45 in game 1, 42 in game 4. And the Sixers get a huge road victory in Boston to have the 3-2 series lead, which sets up a game 6 on a Friday night in Philadelphia with a chance to send the 76ers to their first Eastern Conference final since Allen Iverson, at that point 22 years ago. What happens in game 6? They're up 2 going into the fourth quarter. James Harden is having, a bit of a struggle game, but they're up 2 going into the fourth quarter, and then they get outscored 24-13 in the fourth quarter, thanks to a monster fourth quarter from Jason Tatum, who also really struggled in the first 3 quarters of the game. They lose the game at home in what was their chance to go to their conference finals, in what was that's been their only chance here to get there. Really, that was their only chance of getting there over the last 3 years. And Harden in that game 6, 4 for 16 from the field. And then in game 7, 3 for 11 from the field, 9 points. And the Sixers lost by like 30 points. So James Harden, I'm hoping, remembers that has
Yeah.
happened recently in a very similar situation here, and that he can't be doing that again. So very interested to see how he comes out in this game. Let's give our predictions here, Ben. Of course, we are both Cavs fans here, and I know both of us really want them to get the victory at home. We both know this is their best chance of pulling it out at home. Our series predictions: I had the Cavs in 6, you had the Pistons in 7. Both of them are still very much alive here. Ben, who are you going with in Game 6?
Yeah, still that easy prediction. I'm still like, you never know with the Pistons. I know I've been, sort of high on that team throughout the year, but hold on. I'm gonna go to Cavs in game 6. They've been really good on the home court. Winning 4 in a row isn't totally easy, but I think they have great momentum. I think, the Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse crowd will be wild, maybe even Miles in it. And I I believe I now I'm starting to trust the Cavs more than the Pistons. What I'm seeing, I believe Donovan Mitchell could bounce back more. He's played better at home than on the road so far in the playoffs. So I'm expecting hopefully a good performance from him, and then just great energy from Struess and Schroeder, who I could trust to come in and bring great energy off that bench. And I think the big guys could have it going with good games. I think the kids could overall play well enough, have a good team performance, and win in a close game.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be easy at all. Like I said before, the Pistons are not going to go down without a fight. They have their identity and they are going to use it to their advantage. Sometimes it's to their disadvantage. The free throw numbers again in this game it was advantageous to the Cavs, and I think a lot of that was because they were, still being super physical. But I'm hoping that they can pull it off. I think they are going to pull it off. I think it will probably be a close one. Um and I'm just really excited to see if they can actually do it. This is the furthest this team has ever gotten, being one win away. It would be absolutely heartbreaking if they could not get it done this season with this position. To try to face the Knicks in the conference finals. So I think they will. I guess the question for the Cavs Pistons history here, I guess the question is going to be, if I go back in, let me go back through Cavs history because I want to make sure I have my years correct here. Because there, was that stretch where they would play the Pistons, a lot. Okay, so I do have my years correct. Back-to-back years, 2006 and 2007. Which which recreation of a year are we going to get here? In 2006, this was LeBron James's first time making the playoffs. The Cavs and the Pistons were playing each other in the second round. The Cavaliers, I believe, were down 2-0 in the series. Yes, they were. They were down 2-0. They win the next 3, including a hard-fought Game 5 victory in Detroit to go up by 2 to set up a Game 6 at home to move on to their first conference finals, or I guess their second one in franchise history. And they lost Game 6 by 2 points and then followed up with a blowout loss in Game 7 on the road. The following year, Cavs Pistons Eastern Conference Finals. Pistons again win the first 2 games at home. Cavs win the next 3 games, including the 48-point game from LeBron in Game 5, the 25 straight points to close out the game. Then they go home to Cleveland in Game 6 and they close it out thanks to the Booby Gibson game in the fourth quarter. Which year is being recreated here? Is this 06 or 07? We will find out on Friday.
Well, hopefully, it's not rewriting history from 2023 Harden or 2006 Cavs, but I believe
Yeah.
we could hopefully do it, and it would definitely be a disappointment if we rewrote any of that. Harden 2023 history or 20 years ago history. Let's hopefully rewrite it as similar to 2007, and maybe it will come down to maybe a role player like a Max Strus and Dennis Schroeder stepping up, sort of like Booby Gibson. Who knows?
Yeah, or go the other way as well. I mean, anything can happen at this
Yeah,
point.
true.
We'll just see what happens. All I know is again, I hope that we come on here on the podcast for Saturday or Friday night, coming out Saturday morning. I hope we come on here happy. I hope we come on here happy.
Yeah, absolutely,
But
as always.
yes, as always. But of course, spent a lot of time on the Cavs business because we are Cavs fans, and it was a huge game, for the Cavaliers to win. We have another game six that's going on Friday night in Minnesota between the Spurs and the Timberwolves. San Antonio, who took care of business in dominant fashion, once again winning game five by a whole lot of points. Now go to Minneapolis with a chance to advance to their first conference finals in 9 years and knock off the Timberwolves there on the road. Ben, we recapped the game five yesterday here. It was a 29-point victory for the Spurs here. What are you looking to see from the Timberwolves here as they're facing elimination here for the first time in these playoffs?
Yeah, Minnesota, they're gonna have to go on big runs and throw punches at uh, San Antonio at home. They need to hope Anthony Edwards can, you know, back and have another big superstar performance to lift them up to a win. I hope he takes more shots than he was able to in game five. Just even more aggressive. Ian Edwards and just if he's going off, I mean, still may not be enough. You need other guys, around them making big plays, and definitely was not enough of that from other guys in game five. So you're gonna need Rudy Gobert being Wemby's stopper. Hopefully, uh, being more physical on Wemby, getting him the foul trouble. Hopefully, at home if you're the Timberwolves and you need, Julius Randle. You just, try to, drive, look to draw more fouls and, you know, try to, you know, find ways to set him up to get better open looks, not settle for bad jump shots, which he settled for bad jump shots in game five.
Yeah, I mean the Timberwolves just have to flat out play better. I mean, aside from game 4 when, Victor Wembanyama got ejected in the second quarter from the flagrant 2 foul, I'd say the Spurs have really dominated the last 4 games of the series. They had that huge win in game 2. They started off really well in game 3. That ended up being a close win for them because of Wemby's greatness. But then domination again in game 5 here. Like, I feel like if the Spurs just come to play here, I think that they should be able to take care of business. But Minnesota, they're the team again. Like we've been saying, they have the experience being to the last 2 conference finals. They are going to put up a fight on their home floor. But how will they respond to any Spurs push? In this game, I'm excited to see how these two teams respond to the other going on big runs in this game.
Yeah, I agree. It's gonna be a game of big runs potentially, and can't wait to see Wemby back in Minnesota. I think he's gonna be hungry for another big response to this game. Back in Minnesota, things didn't totally go his way the last time when they played a game in there. I expect Wemby to come out aggressive here again in this game, and I would be surprised if he look dominant again, but Minnesota's got to do all they can to limit him, even though tall challenge as usual playing 1B.
Yeah, I mean, the thing to watch with Wemby in this game, Ben, it's kind of like, we've talked about it before on here, how, you know, we're watching this guy go through all of his first time moments in his career. And he's already a great player. He's going to have an incredible career. But we're watching in real time here him go through his first experience in these situations. We talked about it. He had his first road playoff or his first playoff game against Portland, the first road playoff game, game 4 against Portland. We kind of talked about it as his first real huge playoff moment in game 3 of this series in Minnesota, where he had the 39 points, the 16 in the fourth quarter. We see his first career ejection in game 4, where he kind of loses his temper, elbows Naz Reid in the face, and has the big bounce back in game 5. And now then we're going to get our first taste of seeing how Victor Wembanyama responds in an environment that, because of what happened in game 4, I bet is going to be booing him every time he touches the ball. And we have not seen him, to my knowledge, in the NBA just yet, especially in the playoffs, how he is going to handle that. Like, is he going to take it on like he did in games 5 and 3, or is it going to be like game 1 where he really struggled, game 4 where he gets ejected and struggled even before that? It's going to be, I'm so excited to see how he handles that situation where it's going to be a hostile environment directed towards number 1.
Yeah, sure will be. And that will be interesting to watch with him. And yep, San Antonio to win. They're gonna need a great team performance with, you know, hopefully, Stephon Castle, De'Aaron Fox, you need your guards going toe for toe, hopefully, with, Anthony Edwards, too. If you want a great chance to win, I believe in. Yeah, that's what I got there.
Yeah, we'll see which other guards step up in this situation. Dylan Harper, has been great these last couple games. He is, we've sung his praises, all playoffs, but he is still a rookie going through this moment, for the first time. So just very excited for this game here. And, Minnesota facing elimination, I'd expect a monster performance from Anthony Edwards. We'll see what, the rest of his team has for him facing elimination. Ben, predictions. Are the Spurs advancing to the Western Conference Finals, or will we have a Game 7 back in San Antonio?
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's tough. Um,
Here were our predictions. Oh, wait, no, those were our old predictions for
old
the
one.
series.
My new one is Spurs.
There it is.
Yeah, there it is. Yep. See, mine Spurs is 7, but if the Spurs win that game, then everybody else on the pad would be right. So, I know. Yeah, tough. Like right now, I don't know. I'm believing in Minnesota when they're on their home floor. They just look really good there. I'm picking Minnesota for right now. I think expect Ant to come out hungry. He seems to turn it on when things could be on the line for him and the Timberwolves, like it is in this game, and I expect Timberwolves to look a lot better. I think they'll make good adjustments and make it interesting, but it could go either way. We'll see.
We will certainly see. I'm going to go with the Spurs. I think that I think they can do this. Like I said, I feel like they've dominated the series for the most part. Like, again, besides the Wemby ejection, the game 1 loss, in game 3 that was close. Spurs have completely dominated the series, and I think that they will, have a good performance to close it out. I think for the two teams that we're talking about that have a chance to clinch here with both the Cavs and the Spurs, I think they both understand the magnitude of this game. Not just because you get you get to finish up the series in 6, not have to worry about playing in a win or go home game 7, but like the teams that they're about to play are just sitting and waiting and getting all this rest while these two teams are battling it out after New York swept Philadelphia and Oklahoma City swept the Lakers. Those series wouldn't start until Tuesday, I believe, if the series both went to game 7. And I believe specifically in the Eastern Conference, I'm not sure how the West would be. If that series were to go to game 7, the Eastern Conference Finals would be every other day. So for the Cavs and the Pistons, that means that in the month of May, they would have played a game every other day. No situations where there were 2 days of rest, playing legitimately every other day. If the Cavs are able to win game 6, and I believe that the Spurs can win game 6, there is going to at least be a stretch where you get like 2 or 3 days of rest to try and recoup yourself before and during the series. So I think both teams understand the significance of that. And I think that both teams
Yeah.
are going to close it out on Friday night. But we'll see. I mean, this has been incredible playoffs. Those 2 series have definitely been entertaining. So, wouldn't be surprised if they went to, a game 7. But I'm going to go with the gut here and hope that I can get both of these series right. Cavs in 6 and Spurs in 6. But the only one way to find out, and that is to actually play the games. And we will be back on Saturday morning to discuss what has happened in those games, going forward. Ben, cannot wait for these games on Friday night. Hoping that we're back on here happy, like I said before.
Yeah.
And, just super excited. Ben, you have anything else before we get out of here?
No, just go Cavs. Go to the conference finals. I feel great for Donovan Mitchell if he finally got there, and just for the whole team.
Yeah, no question about it. So, pardon my voice for the next podcast. In case I am able to go to the game, I'll try to be the 6th man for the Cavaliers. But cannot wait. Again, these 2 big game 6s on Friday night. Detroit trying to force a game 7 in Cleveland. 7 p.m. Cavs trying to get to their first conference finals in 8 years, first without LeBron in 34 years. And then the Spurs looking to get to their first conference finals in 9 years, while Minnesota looks to force a game 7. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe for more NBA playoff content. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Peace.